Hey guys, so as always, this is everything that I've read since the last time that I made one of these, and everything that I hope to read in the next upcoming week. I mentioned in my March wrap-up that I posted last week that I wasn't going to be doing one of these last week because I just felt like I hadn't read quite enough in that week time span to really talk about much. But I did post that March wrap-up. If you have not seen that, I highly suggest you go watch that. It's got a nice, analytical, statistical look at my reading in March, which I think is fun to do, and people seem to enjoy when they watch it. And, of course, I want to say thank you real quick to all of our producers over at Patreon. Thank them very, very much for their support in this way, and I appreciate every one of them individually so much, and I appreciate all of you guys for watching this and continuing to watch them and watch my reviews, and I hope you'll keep doing so. And before I get into the books themselves, I as always want to mark them down. I read 7 books since, I guess, 2 weeks ago, since the last time I made one of these. And I feel like my numbers are kind of off for some reason. My numbers on this board are different than they are on my March wrap-up when looking at my statistics and stuff. And I'm not entirely sure why that is. I have to go through my list and stuff and see what exactly the discrepancy there is. But this number might be slightly off. I don't know by how much, but I don't think it's too much. I think it's fine. It's fine to still go off for now. So I'll just add 7 more to this. So this says that I am on 55, which I think, if it is accurate, is above where I'm supposed to be for my Goodreads reading goal, which is 200 books for the year, a total for the year, 200 books. I should be still well on my way to get there. I mean, we're a quarter of the way through the year now, a little bit over that, I guess, now that we're a few days into April. But so the first thing that I finished since the last time I made one of these is this. It is Star's End by Cassandra Rose Clarke. I did actually just do a full review of this pretty much as soon as I finished reading it because I really wanted to talk about it right away. It just came out in March, and it was actually kind of a surprise of how much I liked it. I did request it from the publisher, but I wasn't sure what I would feel about it, but I did go in, hoping that I would like it, and I did really end up enjoying it quite a bit. It was very, very good, I feel like. And it's basically about this woman named Esme, and her father is dying of this deadly disease. And it's set in it's science fiction, so it's set in this collection of planets, these 4, well, not really planets, they're moons that are orbiting a gas giant, and they're all basically owned and governed by the Coromina group, which is run by this woman's father, Philip Coromina. He has been living for a few hundred years now, he's over 300 years old. They are a corpocracy, which is the corporation runs the planets and governs them. They're all citizen employees, everyone that lives there. Esme is very much entrenched into it, as is Philip, of course. He is the CEO, he runs it, he's the head of it, but he is about to die, and Esme has been groomed her entire life, basically, to take over for him. But, I mean, he's really, really old, so obviously she was never really sure if that was ever going to happen or not, but he is dying from this deadly disease and passing the torch to her, and she's not quite sure how to feel about it. Her other 3 sisters, so she has 3 sisters, the 4 daughters of Philip Coromina. They are very estranged, both from Esme and from her father, for reasons that we find out as we read. I don't want to call them flashbacks, because actually that's really what the core of the story is. The sections in which we see the past are longer than the sections where we see the present, as if the story from the past is the actual story we're supposed to be getting, and it feels that way. We follow, in the past, her story from first-person perspective, and the story from the present in third-person perspective. So it's a lot more personal reading her story from the past, from when she was young to much older. And we see the gradual change in her sisters, the situations that occur that make them so estranged from their father and from her as well. And it's really very good. It's such a nuanced and well-balanced story. I loved reading from Esme. She is a great character. The Philip Coromina, his character is so odd and powerful, but has this really heavy weight to him. You just feel his presence in their lives, and we get to learn a little bit about her sisters, not quite as much as about her. She is very kind of cut off from her sister. She's got an age gap between them. They're from a different mother. And so there's a lot going on in between their relationship that kind of always kept them a little bit more separated than she would have liked. And the other 3 girls have all been kind of more tight-knit. and just seeing them grow up in this science fiction future and how they came to be where they are. It's a powerful story, I feel like, and I really liked it a lot. So it's great family drama with a lot of great ideas in it that really uses its atmosphere and the world that it's been built on very well. Like the science fiction elements of it stand out very much as like how they grew up, and it affects their personalities, affects who they are, it affects these worlds that they live on, it affects the plot very heavily. The conflict there is very much entrenched in some of these science fiction elements in this. So I feel like if this was not already on your radar as something that you would want to pick up and you really like science fiction or really even want to get into science fiction, I feel like this would be a great book to pick up and try out. I really liked it a lot. I highly suggest you go check out my full review on it if you want to learn more about it, because I talk about it quite a bit more there. And the next, I finished Red's Sister by Mark Lawrence. This is the first book of the Ancestor. So this is a new series from him. It just came out a few days ago. It just came out last week, I believe, on the 4th. Yes, it says it right here, on the 4th. And I'm going to be reviewing this very, very shortly. I plan on filming a review for it either tomorrow or maybe even tonight. I'm not sure. It really depends. The sun's kind of going down right now, but I don't mind filming in the dark. It's not a big deal. So this is really good. This is my first ever thing that I've read by Mark Lawrence. I feel like I have a lot of stuff to say about this, and I don't necessarily want to say all the things right now because I want to do the full review, but I have a lot to say about it, and I really liked it. I did have a couple problems with it, but I still really liked it. Basically, it takes place on this planet. It's a fantasy, but it takes place on a planet that it seems their sun is going out, but there's this thing called the focus moon that they go into more detail about. I won't go into too much detail about it right here, but basically it allows for some sunlight to be directed into basically on the equator of this planet is what I got from it, on the equator. And there's this strip of land that they call a corridor that the vast majority of people can live on now. All the rest of it is covered in snow. The rest of the planet is covered in snow, and it's a really cool idea. I really like that aspect of it a lot, and it affects how people act in this world quite a bit. This world is super dark. I hated almost everybody in this book, even the main character sometimes, even though I did like her. And some of the characters surrounding her are okay, but so many characters throughout the book will just make you ask, like, what is wrong with these people? This girl, Nona, she is about to be hanged for the possibility that she might have killed this pit fighter in this place where she's basically been raised as an orphan. She was sold off to a child seller, and the child seller sold her to this guy who runs pit fighting, and she was going to be raised to be a pit fighter herself, and she ends up killing, or supposedly killing, this pit fighter, and then is going to be hanged for it and stuff like that. But then she is taken to this convent where she learns to become a Red Sister, which is basically kind of nun that follows the Ancestor, which is like their god, which hasn't really been gone into too much yet. There's these kinds of different abilities that different people, depending on their ancestry, their heritage, have, and she has some special abilities, and people around her have some special abilities that she learns to hone, and it's basically like a school type situation where she's going to classes and learning stuff. And there's a lot of really messed up stuff in it, and it's really good. If you like Mark Lawrence's stuff already, I'm pretty sure you'll like this. Just from what I vaguely remember other people talking about his other work, like the series that has the Prince of Thorns and stuff like that. And I've heard people talk about this before and talk about them very highly, and I feel like you would like this as well. And if you haven't already read any Mark Lawrence, I feel like you could like this just as much as I did. I really enjoyed it, but I do have a lot more to say about it. I feel like it was kind of messy. The plot was kind of messy. The writing is kind of messy. It's a very distinct writing style that is hard to describe, and I'm gonna go into it more in the review. Just know that I did like it and do recommend it. And then I also finished Waking Gods by Sylvain Neuvel, the second book in the Themis Files, the first book being Sleeping Giants, which I did do a review of last year, and I liked that book okay. It was slightly disappointing. I feel like some people felt that way also, that it was slightly disappointing and just a little bit lackluster. It was just okay. It was entertaining to read, and the way in which it was mostly written in is interview format, where there's one interviewer character that we don't really know anything about, interviewing these characters back and forth. Some of their journal entries or their mission logs or stuff like that was included as well. And this one has the same format, but that one, it was kind of lacking in something. It didn't really have much action, didn't really have much of a conflict. It just didn't really go much of anywhere. This one, though, this book is so much better than the first book. I enjoyed this book so much. I read it in basically one sitting. It is so much more intense, so much more action. There's so much more conflict. There's so much more cool stuff going on. There's a lot of really cool ideas, especially towards the end, that they introduce that I thought were fantastic and super smart. It just has a lot of potential. I can't wait to read the next one now. That's pretty much all I'm going to say about it right now, because I don't want to spoil anything for the first one if you haven't read it. I will talk about it more for those that have read the first one in my review. I very highly suggest you watch that, especially if you don't know if you want to continue on, because I know a lot of people that aren't necessarily sure if they want to continue on after Sleeping Giants. I found this to be extremely worth continuing on. I just have to say that I kind of found it a little bit weirdly disproportionate, and how two books go together. The first book was kind of super boring in comparing to this one. Like it was very disproportionate, in my opinion, how awesome this book was compared to the first one. I feel like a lot more people would like this book than they like the first book. So definitely continue on if you weren't sure already if you were going to. And if you have not picked up the series yet, I very highly suggest you give the first one a shot and see how you feel about it, because it is still really cool, and it's got a lot of really cool ideas, and I really like the format of it, actually. I really like the interviewer character. We don't really know anything about him, like I said, and you learn more about him in this, but that interview format, I feel like, makes him as a character stand out a lot, and I feel like this one just really makes it worth it, makes the whole thing worth it, and the first one is really a setup for this, and I very highly suggest reading them. They're very quick to read, I feel like, because of that format specifically, but this one specifically also because it is a lot more intense and has a lot more stuff going on. I very much hope that you'll check it out if you have not already. Give it a shot. And then I also, and we're kind of getting into audiobooks now, I finished an audiobook before I finished this one, but I found this audiobook on Overdrive, but I already had the physical book, an arc of it. It's called Shadowbond by Steve Erickson. This is very, very strange. So I kind of went back and forth between listening and reading this book physically. It's basically the Twin Towers, those Twin Towers, the World Trade Center, end up somehow in the middle of this desert. People are like stopping next to it, because it's on this long stretch of road that doesn't really have anything on it. It's just a desert. People pull over, they see that there's Twin Towers there. It's like music coming out of it. Weird music. The music is different for everybody. You hear different songs depending on who you are. And on one of the higher floors of that tower, is this guy who we come to understand very quickly. So it's not really a spoiler. It's kind of important for the story for you to know this going in, that the guy is like the dead twin brother of Elvis. Elvis had a twin brother that they were going to name Jesse, but that baby Elvis's twin brother died during childbirth. This story follows this character, Jesse Presley, as if he had not died and Elvis had died in his place, and the impact that would have had on the world. It's a very strange book. It's very hard for me to talk about. I feel like I'm going to do a full review of this because I can't really do a very quick summary of what my thoughts are right now. There's a lot to say on it. It is extremely weird. I did like the writing quite a bit, actually, and I did like the way that it was handled. I feel like he didn't necessarily know, the author didn't necessarily know what he wanted this book to be, and it kind of feels like a jumbled mess of stuff, but it was also really intriguing. Like, it had my attention the entire time. It's very much about music, very heavily about music, which is very strange. There's this like stretch of road called the Shadowbond. There's like a hidden highway or something like that, that this two characters, this brother and sister, are driving on. And it's very interesting, I have to say that. All these people are being like led to the Twin Towers. This brother and sister character are trying to get on the Shadowbond in order to get to the Twin Towers. And they have like a mixtape that their father made, and they're like listening to it. And it's very much about, like I said, music. It's about the history of music a lot. And it just has this really strange element of the Twin Towers coming back. But it all kind of comes together and makes sense. But it also doesn't. If that makes sense, it doesn't. I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot going on. And I might talk about it more in a full review very, very shortly. If you're looking for something kind of weird and you like the sound of that, maybe give it a shot. I think my battery on my camera is about to die any minute here. Yep, it died. Where were we? So I also finished the last couple things that I finished this past week. I also kind of switched between the audiobooks and these physical editions. Assassin's Apprentice and Royal Assassin, both by Robin Hobb. These are the first two books in the Farseer trilogy, which I am really enjoying so far a lot. Obviously the first Robin Hobb that I've read, as these are the first two, and they're so good. So good. If you have not read any Robin Hobb yet, I very highly suggest you do so. I mean, if you really like fantasy and you don't already know, if you plan on picking up Robin Hobb sometime in the future, I don't know what exactly I can do to convince you to do so, because I know a lot of other people have talked about these already, and I'm sure you've heard other people say how good they are. But let me just add to that and say that they are, in fact, very, very good. It took me a little bit to get into the first one, to get kind of used to it, but by the end of the first one, even before that, but definitely by the end of the first one, I was completely hooked and moved on immediately to the second one, and now I've immediately moved on to the third one, now that I finished the first two. So, they're really good. They follow Fitz. He is the bastard son of a prince, the prince in waiting. He's basically decided not to be the prince anymore, and he apparently had this bastard son that has just been kind of living with the mother and her family for a while, but is now, because his mother's father doesn't want him to anymore, is now not going to be living with them anymore. He's like 6 years old when this happens. He's given to one of his father's men. He's like the stable man for this place called Buckkeep, and Buckkeep is where basically Fitz is raised. He's kind of raised within the royal court, but not really. I mean, some people take to him, some people take to his existence, and some people don't. We see him as he grows up, mostly with this stable master, who is very loyal to this boy's father, to Fitz's father, Prince Chivalry, and now Fitz. We watch him grow up. We watch him in the first book especially. We kind of skip over a lot of years as we watch him grow up and become more ingrained into these people's lives, the people that are in the court, like the other princes, Chivalry's brothers, and kind of gets to know the king a little bit. The king's fool has a heavy presence in these books, and he's a great character. And just, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I don't want to sit here and explain all of it to you. I feel like I didn't really know anything about these going into them, and I feel like it's a good way to go into them, actually. But the kind of story where there's the characters have such a full life to them. They feel so alive, are so well written, and so full of life. And I've really enjoyed the characters a lot, especially Fitz. It's told from his first person perspective. It's kind of told as if sometime much later on in his life, where he is looking back and telling us these things about his past. And I really enjoyed the way in which Robin Hobb writes him and writes his story. And we kind of becomes more than what he realized he could become, and more than what some people would like him to become. He has this ability. There's a few different kinds of magical-ish abilities that are possible in this world. There's one called specifically the Wit, which is very frowned upon. It's where he basically can kind of connect his mind to animals and share thoughts with them and become very connected to them in this way, like very bonded with them. And it's very frowned upon for people to do this. And there's this other thing called skill, which allows people to kind of talk amongst each other, amongst far distances, kind of create a bond in that way with other people, to use as a tactic of communication in a lot of different situations. But there's a lot of really cool stuff happening here, and I really enjoyed it a lot. I really enjoyed all the characters so much. I love Fitz, I love Burich, I love Verity, and Shade, and Molly, and Shrewd, and just all these characters, and the characters that you don't like, you really, really don't like. There's a lot of very frustrating stuff that happens to Fitz. There's a lot of stuff that he has to go through. Robin Hobb really plays with his failures and his inabilities to do things, and how that furthers his story, and how things not going the right way furthers the story. Things very often don't go the way that you would want them to, and it's very frustrating, but it's very compelling, and it's great. It's one of the only things that I would say about it is the good characters with the characters you're supposed to not like. The characters that are like the evil characters are very kind of disbalanced a bit, wherein you really, really hate all the characters that you're supposed to hate. But sometimes there's some nuance in what the characters you do like. Sometimes Fitz does things you don't really like. Sometimes the characters around Fitz do things to him that you don't really like, but you still like them as characters. But there's a lot of really good stuff happening here. I really love the characters. That's probably my favorite part about it. The story is kind of meandering a little bit in Royal Assassin, especially. Assassin's Apprentice, we skip a bunch of time throughout the years as he grows up, and that didn't feel too off-putting to me. Sometimes it does, and it actually worked here a lot. There's some meandering going on with the plot, some things that I feel like she could have cut out maybe, but still add to the story. I still add to his character, and I feel like that's why I like them. A lot of it does add to Fitz's character, and I'm getting really into Fitz's story, his life story, which we're getting a very good glimpse into throughout the whole thing. And I did, like I said, just start Assassin's Quest, and I'm a little bit of a ways into this, not very far, maybe a couple hundred pages, and really enjoy it as well. This one feels a little bit even more meandering than the other ones, but I still like it. I like it because of that, actually. This one, as the title suggests, is like kind of questing. We're starting to get into a little bit of a quest that Fitz is having at the moment, so it's very fun. I very much enjoyed it, and I can't wait to keep reading her. I don't know if I'll get to the Live Ship Traders trilogy this month. If I might, maybe have started the Live Ship Traders before the end of the month, maybe. And I mean, by the end of next month, well, I might have maybe have finished the Live Ship Traders. I think it's a definite possibility. I really like them a lot. And I think the Live Ship Traders trilogy, I think, will be especially one that I really like. It's a different story, but I really like her writing, and I think I'll like the Live Ship Traders a bunch, and I think I might pick those up, not necessarily right after these, but definitely very soon. And then this week, I've already started reading Brimstone by Cherry Priest. This follows this young woman who has these kind of clairvoyant powers. She goes to this kind of small town to learn from this other group of clairvoyants to kind of hone her abilities and learn more about what she can do. That is kind of mixed with the story of this older guy, this tailor, who has come back from World War I, and his wife died of the flu, of influenza. And it's a story of taking place in the early 1900s, right after World War I, this kind of period of spirituality that existed. There's this kind of spiritualism that this author seems to be exploring in this. And it's a good, if you like fantasies that take place during that time that deal with that kind of spiritualism, then I've read a few that do that kind of thing. One just last year, Ghost Talkers by Mary Robinette Cole, and there was one a couple years before that. But I've read a few of these kinds of things before, and I do really like them. I really like that time period, and I'm going to talk more about this next week, obviously, when I finish it, and I'll do a full review of it as well. And I'm not entirely sure what I'll pick up next. There's a couple different options. I'm going to just kind of choose based on mood, and I'll talk more about them when I get to them. This video is already kind of long, so Void Star by Zachary Mason, which just came out today, actually. And it's a science fiction, it's like a literary fiction science fiction book, which has gotten some mixed reviews so far, but I'm hoping to like it. And then Change Agent by Daniel Suarez, which comes out in a week from today, which I might pick up as well. It's another science fiction, and it sounds quite fun. It's like a thriller, science fiction thriller. And then I definitely will probably read this because it will hopefully go by quick, I think. And that is Roughneck by Jeff Lemire. I got this unsolicited from the publisher, but I'm very happy they sent it to me. It's really cool. It's this nice, thick hardback of a graphic novel. So it's a graphic novel, and it's this graphic novel that comes out a week from today on the 18th, just like Change Agent. So I'll probably read this. Giselle and I are going to Easter in Maryland with my family over the weekend, so I believe I'll take this with me probably and read it when I have free time. So yeah, I'm excited to read this. It's a murder mystery. It's a graphic novel murder mystery. On the back it says, the Stephen King of comics. Someone said that, so we'll see how it goes. Other than that, I think this video has gone on long enough. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you read any of this stuff, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you're now interested in reading any of this stuff, I would love to hear that I persuaded you to do so. I would love to hear about that, and love to hear any thoughts and opinions you have on anything that I mentioned. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you later with more.